All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about a huge piece of US law, one that totally changed the game for big business, the Sarbanes Oxley Act. You probably heard it called SOX. And this law, well, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was born from a full-blown absolute crisis. To really get what SOX is all about, you've got to understand the world it came from. The stock market was booming, right? But underneath all that, something was seriously wrong. Some of the biggest, most trusted companies in America were basically built on a foundation of lies, and the whole system was about to come crashing down. So let's start with that breakdown, a total crisis of corporate trust. Because to understand the solution, you first have to grasp just how bad the problem really was. And that was the real question, wasn't it? I mean, think about it. Our entire financial world, it runs on trust. Trust that when a company puts out a financial report, those numbers are real. But what happens when that trust just disappears? When everybody, investors, employees, you name it, suddenly realizes the numbers are just made up? Yeah, this wasn't just a thought experiment. The law itself was forged in the fire of collapsing giants like Enron and Global Crossing. We're not talking about small accounting errors here. We're talking about massive, deliberate fraud. You had executives cooking the books, hiding billions in debt, and just completely wiping out the life savings of their own employees and investors. People were furious, and they wanted Washington to do something about it. And that public outrage was so loud, Congress had no choice but to respond. They were pushed into action, and the result was the bill that would eventually become the Sarbanes Oxley Act of 2002. And here's what's wild, how fast they moved. I mean, look at this timeline. The bill gets introduced in February, and by the end of July, it's the law of the land. For Washington, D.C., that is light speed. It just goes to show you, everyone knew this was a five-alarm fire. They had to do something, and they had to do it now. Okay, so what did this law actually do? Well, you can really break it down into three main pillars, three big ideas that completely changed the rules of the game for public companies and the people who audit them. So pillar number one was the creation of a brand new watchdog. It's called the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, or PCAOB. See, before SOX, the accounting industry was kind of policing itself. This new law said, nope, not anymore. It created an independent referee with real power to inspect these accounting firms and enforce the rules. For the very first time, the auditors were actually being audited. Pillar number two was all about making sure auditors were truly independent. One of the huge problems with Enron was that their auditors were also making a ton of money from consulting contracts with them. How independent can you really be in that situation? So SOX put a stop to that. It banned auditors from doing a bunch of those other lucrative services. Plus, it made sure lead auditors had to rotate out every 5 years, so they wouldn't get too comfortable and chummy with a company's management. And the third pillar? Well, this one was about empowering the people on the inside, the employees. SOX created really important new protections for whistleblowers, the folks who actually report the fraud. This was a total game changer, designed to make people feel safe enough to speak up when they see something wrong. But SOX didn't just stop with the auditors. Oh no, it went right to the top, straight to the C-suite, and made executives personally accountable like never before. This right here, this is a massive change. Section 302 basically says the days of "I didn't know" are over. Now the CEO and the CFO have to put their own signature on the company's financial reports. They have to personally swear, using this exact wording, that everything is true and there are no big fat lies hidden in the numbers. Plausible deniability? Gone. The buck stops right there in the C-suite. And what happens if they sign a report they know is false? Well, Section 906 of the Act lays it out pretty clearly. They could face up to 20 years in prison. All of a sudden, there was real, personal, serious risk for the people at the very top. And that wasn't all. SOX brought in a whole bunch of other rules to keep executives in check. If a company had to restate its financials because of bad behavior, the CEO and CFO had to give back their bonuses. The law also made it illegal for companies to give personal loans to their execs, and it forced insiders to report their stock trades way faster, which brought a lot more transparency to the whole process. So finally, what gives this law its bite? It's one thing to make new rules, right? But Congress also gave the law some serious teeth by creating new federal crimes and really powerful protections. You know, one of the biggest issues in past investigations was that key documents would just vanish. So SOX made it a federal crime to knowingly shred, hide, or fake documents to block an investigation. It also created a specific new crime for defrauding shareholders. No more loopholes. And the law also followed through on protecting those whistleblowers we talked about. Under Section 806, if you get fired or punished for reporting fraud, there's now a clear path to get justice. You can file a complaint, which kicks off a federal investigation, and you could potentially get your job back, plus back pay and other damages. It created a real incentive for people to do the right thing. So when you step back and look at the whole thing, what's the big takeaway? The Sarbanes-Oxley Act was a powerful, direct answer to a complete collapse of trust in American business. It brought in new refs, demanded independence from auditors, and put personal accountability right in the corner office. It really did create a whole new rulebook. But that leaves us with one big question, doesn't it? All these years later, are these rules enough to stop the next crisis from happening? Now that's something to think about.